Друзья, а давайте обратим наше...
Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the Russian market.
секторов, таких как телеком,
We have 10 sectors: fintech, retail, adtech, and others
рост и
are going up. They're growing, they're becoming more attractive as investments. Deep tech, gaming, logistics, and deliveries are expected to grow a lot in 2021.
пока количество венчурных
Maybe at this point there is not a lot of venture deals, 5 times less
стартов из статуса России как цифровой страны.
than in China or the US. But still, we are growing and growing fast. Did you know that in 2020 we were ranked 9 among all the cities
Ну вот теперь знаете. В рамках
in terms of climate for startups? This session is called Space Cowboys,
какие направления для инвестиций,
Startups Road to IPO.
что будет с российским,
How to choose the best
как распознать
way to do an IPO? What is the future of Russia's venture capital? How to find a unicorn? How to invest more? These and other questions we will discuss right now at this session. Now welcome to the stage the moderator of this session, Pekka Viljakainen, Skolkovo Ventures Chairman of the Board of Directors. Welcome.
Также приглашают сюда Владимира
I would also like to welcome to the stage Vladimir Potapov, Senior VP at VTB Bank and CEO of VTB Capital Investments. Online with us, Adam Kostel, Head of Listings, EMEA Nasdaq.
NASDAQ. Pekka, please.
Pekka,
Okay,
your time to shine.
good day, ladies and gentlemen. Especially I want to thank and welcome Adam. I guess, Adam, you are from Stockholm now. Is that correct, sir?
I'm from Stockholm, yes. Unfortunately, I would love to be there. I'm in the wrong place.
No, well, Adam, it's a story of your life. Just joking. So you are all warmly welcome, and also the online viewers. This morning we already had a session and got the thousands of questions actually from the online audience. Very exciting to see that despite we have certain limitations to have on-site here because of the COVID, that there are so many people following us around the world. But today is a pretty unique moment. First of all, we have been discussing many times colleagues from Nasdaq to join the Startup Village, also on the stage talking about the IPOs. And unfortunately, because of the COVID, Adam, who is heading the listings on the Europe, have to be at home. But next year, Adam, we have a 10th anniversary here in Startup Village, so you will join to the party. Do we have a deal?
We have a deal.
Okay, very good, very good. This session will be two language, so Russian and English. And I'm extremely happy to have here from VTB Capital Vladimir Potapov, who is the right type heading the VTB Capital. Is that correct?
CEO.
CEO, precisely. Okay. But anyway, Vladimir is extremely great supporter of our startup community, and we have worked together in Skolkovo Ventures and in many areas. Okay, like always in my sessions, I want to be very practical. So no bureaucracy, no bullshit, just business. So if you have good questions, to the Vladimir of Adam, just shoot it. You can send it through the app, and all these are coming here, or you can send it to my email, which is, as you know, bulldozersobaka.sk.ru. And I will get it anyway to my screen. All the best questions will come. So I'm anxious to get questions from you. But just a quick introduction why we are here. 9 years ago, we started Startup Village, 9 years ago, and Skolkovo was established 10.5 years ago. Of course, there has been IPOs, meaning listings to the stock exchange, tens of years and hundreds of years. I mean, it's a long journey. But for startups, it doesn't happen overnight. So if we would have this IPO session 10 years ago here, when we had roughly 3,000 people in the audience, we might be talking about IPOs in the same way, but there would be no connection to your real life because the majority of the companies was not there yet. Because you need to have a certain majority you have to have a certain level of business, you have to have a certain level of competencies to be able to be in the global arena and to be listed. And it's not only financial competencies, it's a broad story what you have to have ready to be ready for an IPO. Not only the size of the company, but also business practices, governance, all that kind of things which are important for the investors. So I'm not saying that today is the day, but at least 9 years after, we are much, much more prepared, and all the startuppers are much, much more prepared. And today, we actually have 5 questions here. And I want to have intentionally kind of 2 different views. Of course, from the Nasdaq standpoint, which is the biggest and the most beautiful on the stock exchange market, from Adam, but also from Vladimir, how this resonates to the, let's say, Russian reality or Moscow Stock Exchange and so forth. Of course, VTB Capital, you are operating in all the stock markets, so you are not only limited to the operating in Russia, but still want to have a kind of 2 angles for this discussion. So, but I think let's get started. Adam, the first question actually to you. How do you see the market, the IPO market as of now? Now when, let's say, perhaps it's not the post-COVID yet, COVID is still here with us, but let's say it's hopefully going lower and lower. How does the market look like from the technology standpoint, technology startup standpoint, as just an overall statement?
Yeah. Well, I think, the markets are a bit shakier now than they have been the last 12 months. But overall, I think there's a great appetite in the financial markets with regards to growth companies in the technology space. And when I say space, I mean sectors that are adopting technology or a digital footprint in a very strong way. I think the COVID period has really resonated strongly in the financial markets, where basically we're seeing that what was trends before is now a reality. And we're talking about e-commerce, we're talking about different aspects with regards that we saw trends building up prior to COVID, which have now established themselves. And I think the financial markets, the investors in the financial markets, both institutional and retail, have a great appetite in investing in such companies. So I think overall, the markets are very there's a strong appetite to take on these kind of companies from an IPO perspective.
To be very honest, even I have been 36 years in business, I have not done many IPOs. I have done a lot of deals, M&A deals, yes, but not as an IPOs. So I'm not the kind of a specialist of this area. But somehow I feel that nowadays even smaller and smaller companies, or even in the earlier stage, are searching, for example, listing. Because when I was at school many years ago, I was always told that listings are for the companies having, let's say, $50 million revenue and so forth. So is my assumption wrong, or is the market changing that even smaller or earlier stage companies are going to the IPO direction?
Let me just give my view on it, and then of course I would be interested to hear Vladimir's view on it as well. From my perspective, in the US, I would still argue that if you want a 1 billion euro, sort of $1 billion US dollar market cap, it justifies going for an IPO. I think that's the kind of expectations. If you turn that around in revenue, around, if you're a SaaS business, roughly $100 to $150 million recurring revenue, that's the kind of size that the financial market is looking for to justify an IPO. We have here in the Stockholm market a different scenario where we are listing smaller, medium-sized companies way earlier than that, but that's a different outlier. In the US, I think still you have to be at least $1 billion US dollars in market cap to justify a listing. And that's justifying from a perspective, A, that investors want to engage, advisors want to engage, but also you can justify the cost of being listed. So I think that's the general framework. But here in Stockholm, we are listing many small, medium-sized companies a lot earlier. but that's a different phenomenon.
Vladimir, how does it look like from the Russian standpoint?
Ну, по-русски, да,
Да,
наверное,
давай,
лучше.
давай.
I'll talk Russian, okay? That will be better for our people here.
Я думаю, что здесь же вопрос
I think it's not about market cap.
движения фондовых рынков
According to the information that we have regarding Russia,
волатильные.
stock markets, they were volatile, they are volatile today. Things which used to be priced at $1 billion 10 years ago and worth $1 billion today, these are two different stories, worlds apart. So it's true that there are some limitations and restrictions
Потому что есть большое количество
because of indexes, and I think you know how it happens.
пассивных инвесторов,
There are passive investors who invest in indexes, and it's understandable overall. You know the requirements, you know what kind of liquidity you should have, you know what investors are looking for, you know all that.
asset management.
Look at the asset management today. It has become a bigger industry as it is. The volume has gone up, and tariff, I mean, the pricing is gone up too. But that's not a problem, really. That's just evolution. We know a lot of good examples when companies with revenue
Но торгуют
which was very small could still do an IPO or be capped at billion or more.
текущая
As the situation shows, and the trends that we have in Russia show, it doesn't really matter that much
точки зарабатывать
how much you earn at this point.
бизнес-модель.
Your business model is key. That's the most important part. And also, speaking about important parts, your management should be equipped with the right vision. Let's put it that way, because when you're doing IPO, people buy your
Покупают CEO и
your CEO, they're buying your key benefactor, they're buying your promise for a better future.
сложно рассчитывать.
Of course, yes, it's true. There are some money requirements. Without some huge cap, you can't go to Nasdaq. But if you want to succeed,
Менялось. Вот
it's still possible even if you're a small company. The COVID-19 pandemic has pushed us all forward. The technological sector has been growing fast, really fast. I agree with Adam on many things. He said that 5 months ago the situation was worse and it was really hard for all of us, but for us it was an opportunity. For all the startups and technological innovators, this pandemic has been a huge opportunity actually. Yes, it was hard for you as well. Now,
снижение
we see that the
которое произошло на фоне
technological companies' evaluations are going down. That's because the interest rates are expected to grow, and that always has a toll on companies. But that is your opportunity, because investors really like that kind of situation.
я думаю, что
There is always some correction taking place. There is always some adjustment. Overall, the situation for technological companies today is really good. I firmly believe in that.
Do you have a translation working? Did you hear Vladimir's? Adam?
Yes.
Yeah, you got the translation on.
Yeah, I got the translation.
Yeah, very good,
think
because I was
agree with Vladimir entirely, but I think also to his context, I think if you're going to the public markets, really a predictable business is key. You know, the ability to understand, and that's really the correlation I was making. Typically, if you reach a certain size, you also have a more predictable and more mature business. And that ties into what Vladimir was saying, that at the end of the day, they're buying into the management team, the business, and the future looking, you know, the future opportunity.
Yeah. Did I understand correctly? This is a question for both of you. So just the formal, let's say, formal limits for an IPO or IPO preparations, how it is right now in Nasdaq, for example, on the European markets where you have a Nasdaq is operating, is there still like some fixed revenue level or a market cap level? No. So there is no.
And I think there's no fixed revenue level or anything. I think the challenge is that in many financial markets today, size matters, and therefore many advisors and many investors will not engage around a smaller IPO. But I mean, for example, in the US, we have had some great Russian examples with Headhunter, Ozone, etc. They have all been close to the $1 billion market cap. in terms of when they listed. And I think that the point I was trying to make was that this justifies the effort around the IPO process and the IPO exercise from all parties involved. But there's no limitation. And we have seen this now with the SPACs as well. It has opened up an opportunity for companies to come to market through a different vehicle earlier. But at the end of the day, what is key to Vladimir's point is that you have things under good management. Yes. You have predictability in the business model. You have a good management team that is ready to manage the dialogue with and the expectations of the investors. Because at the end of the day, this is not an exit. It's really a platform for the next step, and you have to manage the expectations around that.
Yeah.
Ну, да, я полностью согласен с Адамом, но...
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Adam, and here is what I would like to add. The scariest thing for a tech company is to stop growing, and they have very different drivers. You talk about returns, and we all know that the higher the returns, the more difficult it gets to get them even higher. And when a tech company hits a return plateau, it will never be able to sell, and that's scary for a tech company. And that is why there are no limits, there are no threshold for returns. We know companies who sustain losses before IPO and even afterwards. It doesn't really matter. The main focus is on the growth for a tech company. You need to make sure you, as a tech startup, generate opportunities for growth, and that will attract investors. And indeed, taking a company for an IPO, I mean, that is a milestone for a company. And thank you for having me here. And, I believe that anyone who goes for venture funding, you should listen to Adam here and take down notes of everything he says. Because if you are not, as a tech company, considering an IPO, then you have a problem with your vision. Because your way to an IPO is a journey. And every decision that you make may even send you backwards. Sometimes even a minority partner, which is wrong for you, can have a very damaging impact on everything that you work. And you will never be able to go for an IPO or something like that.
I mentioned which forum it was, but 8 years ago I was asked to join to the session where the headline, at least from Russian to English, it was translated IPO as a method of business exit. And I started by saying that actually I have been in publicly listed company working quite many years. And actually the day when the IPO is done, the work starts. So it's definitely not the way of like you do an IPO and then you go buy Porsche Cayenne and life ends there and you start thinking. So it's really the journey, because IPO is a commitment to the shareholders. You will get publicly listed, shares will be publicly listed, you will have multiple shareholders who expect you to treat them neutrally and grow your business. And it's not the moment of exit, it's the moment of start something. And I think it was very well said. Okay, moving on a little bit. There is a lot of questions in our startup tour events around Russia and everywhere. How entrepreneurs should prepare themselves. I mean, how, let's say we have a technology entrepreneur there or online sitting in city of Novosibirsk watching their session, and he or she has a business, let's say it's a profit positive, and he sees that cash positive, and in 2 years an IPO would be possible. How the person should prepare himself for it? Or is it just that you just need to hire some investment banker who does it for you? Adam, I mean, what is your advice for the young or technology and how to prepare for it?
Well, I think it's something that has to evolve, and I think rather than waiting to the bitter end and sort of saying, okay, now I'm going to do an IPO, I think it should be the strategy of a company to evolve into the possibility of being ready for an IPO, because then you have one more option to evaluate. So I think, first of all, build your business, make it, once you are in a stage where you have a predictability in your business, then you are getting closer to being, having an IPO story, because predictability is key for the financial markets. And from that perspective, it's about making sure that you have your CFO, your board, and your management team have the processes in place which are required to, from a public market perspective. So it's really about adding layer by layer as you grow and evolve your business. So not only focusing on growing your business, but also making sure that you have the governance in place to support that growth. Because once you have that, then you have one more option to evaluate whether you should do a trade sale, you should do an IPO, etc. Many companies come to the point where they say, oh, I would like to now do an IPO, and they have not prepared for it, and that takes time. So make sure you have the right people in the board, make sure you have the right people in the management team, so you have that one more option, because closing the door to the IPO market is a missed opportunity if you have a great business.
But before making the same question for Vladimir, from the Russia standpoint, of course, the answer might be pretty similar, but does it mean that you have to have either in your board or your team somebody who has been involved in the IPO process already?
No, it's not a requirement. It's not a requirement, but you have, now you have in Russia, you have Yandex, you have Otkity, you have so many Kiwi, you have Headhunter, you have Ozone. You have so many companies that have great experience from being listed in the US, for example, but also other companies that have been listed. So why not leverage that experience? And there are advisors. So I would contact, advisors and say, listen, what is the gap between where I am now versus where I need to be from a listings point of view? And if you feel that you need to strengthen your team by bringing out outside expertise, then that is one option. Otherwise, you make sure that you develop those processes in-house. You don't need to bring in external people, but you need to have the knowledge. Either you build it yourself or you bring it into the team.
Yeah. Vladimir, what's your advice for it?
Yeah.
Ну, наверное, добавлю то, что Адам сказал.
Well, I would agree with Adam, of course, and I would add that you should never forget about your company's public image, your reputation. That is something which is crucial.
Весь период, пока
And your reputation will stay with you until
ко всему, как
the very end. And that is applicable to everything. I mean, the way you talk to your partners, the way you deal with your competitors,
контрагентами. И вот в этой части, потому что
how you talk to your
кто может про вас рассказать,
contractors.
кто не будет спрашивать тех, кто скажет.
Remember that people will look for someone who can say something bad about you. They won't be calling your wife or your mother, but they will go to people who can say something bad about you, something that you want to hide. So if you are going into business, make sure that your public image is right and that your reputation is impeccable.
Подтвердить, не экономьте на юристов.
And never try to save money on your law team. I mean, lawyers are difficult people. I myself is scared of them.
Вот сэкономив один раз,
They're a tough crowd, but if you try to save money on your legal team, you will pay twice. No matter if we're talking about some taxation matters here,
и третье, наверное,
contracts.
слишком жадным, потому
So be mindful of your legal team, and don't get too greedy.
но
It is not by chance that in Russia we have so many proverbs about
оценивать свой
being too greedy.
оценивать другой. И вот попробуйте поставить
You always evaluate your business higher than it will be done by an outsider. And of course, your business is your baby, you love it, and you think that it is worth several billions at least. And there are these evil analytics who sit somewhere out there and know nothing about your company, and they try to tell you that it should be priced at a much lower level. Please remember that their job is different from you, and if they were you, they would be there. But they're analysts, and they have a different perspective, so remember about that. So if you are considering an IPO or a different vehicle to get into the market, or simply if you have this great idea of having a big company, remember that on your way, in your journey, you will be meeting a bunch of people. You won't like some of them. Some of them will be not as smart as you. Some of them will be greedy. But sometimes these may be totally unprofessional people when it comes to your field of expertise. They have a lot of say when it comes to your success.
The next question is very concrete, but let's have it as a snack, a question from the audience or an online question to Adam. When do you think that the financial bubble in US stock market will collapse? Easy one. Adam, can you give a Nasdaq formal statement on it?
Well, I think definitely there will be, inflation is starting to come now. Interest rates will raise, over time. There will be a correction in the market for sure. But to say that there will be a sort of an implosion, I think that's not the reality. I think the reality, what we're seeing here, is that technology is now the fundament of so many sectors and the future growth. So I think from our perspective, if a company today does not have a strong technology footprint or is being disrupted by one of the new technology companies, that is not something that is just a trend. It's a reality going further. So I think there will still be an appetite from investors to be a part of those companies. If you look now at the largest companies in the world, these are all, technology-driven companies. So at the end of the day, there will be a correction, of course. When that will come, it's too soon to tell. But right now, there's a great appetite to invest in companies that have a technology footprint, that are, disrupting different sectors, and have established themselves as a true alternative. So I think investors will always look for great companies. Whether they do this at certain valuations or others, that's another thing. But
so
there will be a correction, but right now the appetite is still strong.
So from Adam, we will put to the headline to the newspaper that Adam from Nasdaq was reluctant to predict where the bubble will be burst. So what is Vladimir's statement?
Ну, во-первых, неплохо все так уже отдали, вот, честно говоря, если спиков посмотреть, особенно по технологическим компаниям.
Well, if we look at the stats for both global tech companies and Russian tech companies, I believe we've seen some correction already, because the prices is not as high as they were 4 to 3 months ago. I believe the interesting question to ask is what shares you should buy. I mean, stocks of Russian companies, they will be probably popular because they're rather cheap, but what else should we buy? I mean, we're professionals here. What are the types of assets we should look into? Currently, given the current inflation, you can look at gold as an asset.
Интересные меры связи реального и нереального. Вот. Есть огромная тема ECG, если кто-то...
ECG is another important trend right now, ESG, because if you want to get listed, when a stock exchange will ask you why do you want to have an IPO, they will ask you about your ESG strategy, and that can have a great impact on your valuation. And sometimes it will have consequences so great that it's hard to imagine. Look at DoorDash's example at Nasdaq and delivery in London. One company grew by 100% and another dropped by 50%, because 3 asset managers
вот сказала,
representing similar companies to the one that I had, said that they were breaching labor law and they completely damaged the company's case.
reputation damage, вот,
And London Stock Exchange sustained a severe blow to its reputation. And tech companies are now wary of London Stock Exchange because of that.
какой-нибудь компании, производящей табак. Вот, поэтому
Or say, let's take a case of a tobacco company.
вообще становится чуть ли
For them, ESG is a serious problem right now. Before,
Поэтому я
ESG was not even a serious criterion. Now, the situation has changed. And I would be very cautious about valuation. It is a rather subjective
хорошая.
indicator.
Например, я смотрю на точки входа вот в технологический сектор, причем не только в американский.
I myself monitor
Перечислять
US and Russian tech companies that look very good even after the recent correction.
ESG is of course this kind of a buzzword like environment, sustainability, governance. But I just want to tell you an example about this ESG means in reality. I am one of the business angels or founders of the very commodity product called how to grow salmon, fish, riba. And the end product is a salmon, 1 kilogram, but our product is done without antibiotics and no environmental waste generated at all. It's totally clean. And the difference of the valuation of those who are growing the similar salmon in a current way is like 12 times EBITDA or 13 times EBITDA profit margin. Those who are able to grow salmon in sustainable way without environmental waste, it's 36. And the end product looks the same. And there is a massively big difference there. And that's why this ESG, there are a lot of sessions here and next week in St. Petersburg Economic Forum, but it's a really reality that so many years has been talking about environmental issues, and now it's really impacting to the investment decisions and the valuations, precisely like Vladimir said. Okay, time is a little bit running out, so let's go to the next question. What's the difference, or is there a difference, if a company is planning to do an IPO, let's say Russian company, let's be concrete, Russian company is planning to do an IPO in Moscow Stock Exchange, let's say Helsinki, because I'm from Finland, it's a Nasdaq is monitoring, or in New York Stock Exchange. What's the major difference also the reason which location to be selected? Adam, please, let's start.
Well, so first of all, again, I go back to my original statement that, to go to the US, you need a certain size of business to justify the cost and the effort. But however, having said that, if you do have that and you have a commercial model which resonates in terms of, similar companies in the US, but these companies are focusing mainly on the Russian or former CIS, sort of the region. At the end of the day, in the US, you have many investors that are willing to invest in these kind of companies. We've seen this now with Ozone, Headhunter, Yandex, Kiwi, etc. So the challenge is that if they're not listed in the US, the investors will not be able to invest in them in the same way. So by accessing the US market, you get access to investors that would typically not be able to invest in the Russian market, and therefore you get more visibility and reach. So that's the key driver why you want to go to the US if you can. Now, having said that, markets are becoming more international, reach is increasing, so as a company, you have to evaluate who do you need as an investor in your company to support it in the public markets, to justify the valuation and being the right support as a listed company. And maybe you can achieve that in Moscow, but I also think that the concept of dual listing has established itself better and better. So many of the Russian companies are dual listed, and therefore they can reach both local investors and international investors. I think for the right company, this can be a very strong approach. So I would definitely evaluate the local market first, and then if you cannot find the right support, then evaluate which alternative market would be the right one for you to access. But at the end of the day, you need the same things in place. You need strong management, you need strong processes, and you need to have a predictable business. That doesn't change whether you go to Moscow, Frankfurt, Stockholm, or Helsinki, or US.
Vladimir.
Ну, вы знаете, я могу сказать, что
Well, I can tell you this.
я отвечаю за инвестиционную платформу.
I'm in charge of an investment platform at our company. Probably you know VTB My Investments. It's over 30 stock exchanges all together on the same platform. And here's what I can tell you. There is not much difference, really. Almost no difference now. You can buy shares anywhere you want. But first, you should focus on your business. In order to be successful, you need to have the right business model. You need to have the right kind of vision. Your leader should have very clear vision. And you need to really guarantee that the shareholders get what they want. ESG, they are important. We used to have only E, now we have ES, and G, of course, it stands for government. So ESG is going to be paramountly important. Also, you need to be aware of the local markets. It's an important factor now. And now Russian platform is good. Our Russian stock exchanges are going strong in that sense. Take a look at some other exchanges. Nasdaq is a giant, of course. They are immensely successful. But there are many other stock exchanges. They are smaller and they are not that good. They can't compete because they don't have local investors. And we have local investors. Moscow's stock exchange, St. Petersburg stock exchange, we are competitive in that sense. We have local investors in good numbers. So we have over 200 billion per day. That's the turnaround. Recent listings, they show that, for instance, Ozon generated over $200 billion. That was all retail. That's good. That's really good. So, yes, idea. You should have a very clear concept. Cross-listing, good. Just listing, good. Don't lose your focus, okay? That's important. You shouldn't be hostage to your price, I mean the price of the company, because a lot of things determine your cap. But if investors want to buy you, they will buy you. Russian businesses sometimes say, we will have DR, and for that reason your business will be valued in dollars, not in rubles. No, that's not going to happen, because everyone understands that you generate your profits in rubles, then your risks will be in rubles. Everything will be in rubles for you. So if you'll be capped in dollars, it doesn't matter that much. It doesn't matter at all for your investors. You're a Russian company, you work in Russia, you generate value in Russian. Now, if you generate your profits in dollars, your clients operate in dollars, then that will make sense, and it will work vice versa. You will be calculated back from dollar to Russian ruble. This question is for you to settle at a later stage. If you are now thinking about IPO, you should be tactical. And these things which I just mentioned, they should be ranked like place 11 maybe in your list of all the important things to do. Nasdaq, Moscow Stock Exchange, St. Petersburg Stock Exchange. It doesn't matter. Because when the bell rings, when you talk to the people who did IPOs, they know what happens when they start going to the stock exchange. That's a lot of emotions, a storm of emotions. I talked to many people who've gone through IPO. You cannot imagine what kind of emotions they have at the moment when they look at the list of investors who filed their applications. They see who can be friends to you, because of course you all know that we have friends and they want allocation. Those people who were never your friends, they immediately become your best friends. They say, come on, I'm your best friend. You'll get hundreds of messages from all the people you ever
с тобой быть.
found in your life and they said, now I want to be your partner. You're my friend, even though you're not friends at all. That's psychology. That's how psychology works.
I have here a special question. I think this is from the true professional. This is for Adam. I read it word by word, so I say it right way.
Yeah.
If company already has all proper corporate governance, internal controls, and US GAAP financials in place, how much in dollars and in months would it cost to do a SPAC, including subsequent target acquisition? As we see, we have a very easy questions here.
Yeah. So the question is, there's two ways to look at a SPAC. A, you launch a SPAC yourself, basically as a sponsor founder, and then you raise money to look for a company to combine with, or you are a company that wants to combine with a SPAC that already exists. So it's difficult to, I think at the end of the day, to do a SPAC, there are two steps. First, you raise the money to look for a company, and then you combine with the business. So it's a two-step process. It's the cost of raising the capital and listing the offering, and then the next step is combining with that business. So it's difficult to say the exact cost, but the benefit for a company to go through a SPAC is that potentially for the company itself, it's a potentially lower cost because there are some outside factors that are diminished. Yeah. However, as a company, you should always look at the pros and cons of going through a SPAC or not. You lose some of the visibility, you lose some of the momentum, but you do get access to the public market maybe in a more efficient way. So it's you really have to make sure you evaluate the pros and cons carefully. But just saying what the cost is overnight is challenging.
Yeah. Vladimir, do you have a quick comment on this or no?
Ну, я думаю, что спаки, безусловно...
SPACs, well, it's an interesting way. It speeds up the whole process. It can be a good alternative, but Adam said, and I completely agree, it's not about the structure, it's about fundraising. Money is the key here. If you know that you have someone to go to with that SPAC, you'll have to do a lot of work. You'll have to jump through many legal hoops. If you want to be successful, you should be ready for rather high costs. So yes, evaluate all pros and cons. It can go at $100,000 or more than that. It may be easier for you and cheaper for you to go to a more classical IPO solution.
42 seconds and we have 29 questions which has come up online. So I will take one, but before going to those questions, very quick answer. What are the typical mistakes for founders when they start to plan IPO? You mentioned that you should not say with the lawyers, the quality of the lawyers, but is there something else, except that put your company in shape, get your strategy in place and get the good lawyers, or it's some mistake from Nasdaq standpoint?
Well, I think many companies leave it too late. So I would say start earlier. At the end of the day, it's not only about growing your business from a commercial point of view, it's also growing your business from a governance point of view, making sure that you have everything in place.
How early? How early? What is early?
I think the best time to start this is, first of all, have a vision. If you aim for an IPO, then you have many other alternatives as well. If you don't aim for an IPO, you only have one alternative. But it is important that once you understand how your business works, that if you invest $1 here, that you get the output that you're looking for. If you start getting that predictability, then you are starting to get closer to put a business in front of the public markets. Yes. So from that perspective, that's key.
Yeah. Я бы добавил, но я говорил
I want to add one thing. You need to be very clear about your expertise. You need to be very clear about people who will be with you after IPO. Don't forget about your team. If you come to an IPO saying, we have everything, we are the best in the business, your cap will be very low. So you need to be aware of the people with whom you will be growing forward. You need to be predictable. I absolutely agree, because you'll be discounted and you need to give a predictable business model with a growth point going forward years. Even if you change your region, you need to explain why you're switching regions and how you will succeed in this different region from your own home region.
There is one question. We have a little bit more than a minute time. Then we actually have an ESG session start in this same session, this same room. But the guy is asking that I have a company with the $16 million revenue, but because I'm in a hot SaaS area, even with the big haircut, I would say that the valuation is enough to do an IPO. However, I am wondering, should I do a partial IPO and leave some of the shares to the original founders? I mean, partial IPO or the full float there. What do you think about it? What is enough to do a successful IPO?
Well, I think from my perspective, you don't have to float everything. At the end of the day, if you're a growth business, one key aspect that you need to consider is how much you sell now versus how much you sell later to reflect the growth of the company. At the end of the day, you have to have enough in the market to create liquidity. So spread out, if you decide for an IPO, spread it out amongst enough investors so that you have the ability to create liquidity around your share. But selling off everything is not the key part of the success, and you don't have to do that. So at the end of the day, it's a dialogue between you and the investors to find the right portion, the right equilibrium.
Any comment on this, Vladimir?
Ну, САС 60 миллионов достаточно для IPO.
60 million is enough for an IPO. I think that's clear. That's clear for anyone.
Продавать там.
As for how to do it directly or non-directly, it's all about the best way for you. If you have 60 million, that's great. Go to any banker. They will tell you what to do. Because, well, let them get their coin, okay? They have the expertise, you pay to them, and you get all the best advice from them.
I know you love the question. This is our last question today. Do you believe on the stock market on Moscow, Russian stock market, for technology companies? Do you believe on it?
Ну, конечно, ребят, слушайте,
Absolutely. I cannot but say I'm firmly believing in it. We have every week $200 million every week. That's been like that for 1 year. Every year we have $200 million. Of course, people are buying, but not everyone wants to buy Tesla. Of course, not Virgin Galactic. Well, some will buy it. Others want to buy something else. So I believe in it, and I'm ready to put all my money on it.
Adam and Vladimir, thank you very much for joining for this session. We have 75 additional questions, but we'll continue next year. And Adam, as said, you will be physically here. And I hope that we would also do the listings. We will see listings before that, so we could have also founders who have been listed or close to be listed in the discussion. So thank you very much. And within 10 minutes in this same stage, we will start with ESG and green economy. Thank you. Спасибо.
Thank you, Vladimir. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Bye-bye.
Жажда веселья, жажда путешествий, жажда общения. Утоляй любую жажду с освежающими вкусами Липтон. Мой любимый персик.
При низких температурах окружающей среды тела быстро теряют энергию. Но нахождение вблизи источника тепла позволяет телу получать тепловое излучение. Происходит самопроизвольное перераспределение тепла. Следовательно, когда источники тепла находятся вместе, их энергия побеждает холод. Лучшее создается вместе. Газпромбанк.
МТС Стартап Хаб. Работа с реальным бизнес-заказчиком МТС. Доступ к ресурсам самого крупного телеком-бренда в России. Не можешь поверить? А в твой стартап обязательно поверят. У нас есть все, что тебе понадобится. Ресурсы, клиенты, технологии, каналы продаж. Мы оценим твой продукт, правильно применим в своем бизнесе и масштабируем на мировой рынок. МТС Стартап Хаб ждет тебя и твоих нереальных бизнес-идей.